Hello, Dominic. Welcome to Rebel Force Radio.
Happy to be here. Hello to all your listeners. Hope everyone's staying safe.
Well, we're sure trying, and it's a lot easier to do when we can, virtually talk to folks like yourself and throw down and talk about what we love about Star Wars. But you're in the unique position of having actually been in Star Wars. So, but we also know that you're a fan. So how did your journey go from being a fan to actually being in a galaxy far, far away officially as bounty hunter Gekko in episodes 1 and 3 of Mandalorian?
Well, it's no PR pitch. If you YouTube Dominic Pace Entertainment Tonight, I did this cheesy movie years ago called That's the Way I Like It for Miramax Films, and they featured my closet on right before episode 1, and it was my entire Star Wars collection. But ever since I was 5 years old, I mean, Lucas was so ahead of the curve, especially for the Gen Xers. My first playset was a Cantina playset, and I remember playing vividly with Walrus Man and Hammerhead and Greedo, all these little side characters. So on day one, when I'm walking into this cantina, after knowing that I'm going to play a one-of-a-kind species, one-of-a-kind bounty hunter, it was just beyond words, just because the whole entire reason I wanted to become an actor was because of the magic of people like George Lucas and the music that pulled at our heartstrings from John Williams. So this entire 10-day experience back in October of 2018 was just absolutely beyond words. It's one thing to be featured in Star Wars. It's another thing to be a one-of-a-kind bounty hunter. The prosthetic company, Legacy Effects, did such an extensive job. They had 20 other creatures they had to work on, but we hit it off so well. Brian Sipe and I, who headed up Drax for Guardians of the Galaxy, he has an extensive resume. He put 2 hours of work into me every morning. And my hope right now, the icing on the cake, is that we either get a Hasbro or Funko Pop or a Black Series before things get out of control, in terms of Season 2 and all the other projects that Star Wars has going on. So that'll be the ultimate dream for a Gen Xer, but lifelong fan, and this has been beyond words. And I'm so grateful to the entire the fan base who've been so supportive.
Wow, tell us a little bit about how you learned you were going to appear in a Star Wars production and as a bounty hunter.
Sure. I'm from New York, so I'm a blue-collar actor. If you look at my IMDb, it ranges from everything from really strong guest stars on national television to, leading roles in independent film and such, and little featured bits here and there. I take any job, and Bryan Cranston and the late Philip Seymour Hoffman recommended the same thing. You take any job that's there. I promised my wife, this is not some little pipe dream where you come out and you just say, if my agent's not doing the work, I guess it didn't happen. It's grit and grind day in and day out with my career. This was a simple makeup test, and I was polite. I was always respectful. I have my New York roots, East Coast roots, even Chicago included in there, to where you're always grounded, and you're humble, and you're grateful. It's not, this Hollywood attitude to where you just have an air of arrogance as your career starts going up. Well, Brian Sipe of Legacy Effects, he noticed that. He came to me the first day. It was just for a screen test of a project that was called Huckleberry. I still had no idea. But it wasn't until I walked into the wardrobe room, Stephen A. Pura, the director of wardrobe, who worked on other Star Wars projects, any Star Wars fan would be able to relate to the artwork on the walls. And that's when my hands started going a little numb. I go into another room. There was a rack of clothes. There were 3 options. 2 of them were going to be masked, where, it'd been great to have been in the Star Wars universe masked. But really, Brian came upstairs as I saw my name, Dominic Pace, Bounty Hunter, and he says, before they dress you, I just want you to know that you were so patient, you were so kind in that makeup room, and the time that we had during the makeup test, I want to give you the most extensive makeup for our standoff scene here at Navarro and also for episode 1. And I can't tell you how grateful I am again as a Star Wars fan. I still feel like I need to be pinched.
Nice guys finish first.
Sometimes. Some of the girls, not so much, but they're not worth it.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. I reviewed some of your sequences from the Mandalorian. You're not really seen too much in episode 1, but you are there. I spotted you in Grief Karga's cantina.
And let's call a spade. I mean, if it was any other movie and any other project, it really would mean nothing. But if you go back to the 1985 series of 17 figures of Yak Face, Amanaman, Barada, I mean, these figures are worth $200, $300, $400. And then Dave, even with the Clone Wars with Rebels, he'll expand upon their species. So that's the only reason it's special. I don't want to make it any bigger than what it is. If it was another project, I wouldn't even be promoting it. But just because it's Star Wars, just because if it's a one-of-a-kind species and bounty hunter, I think there's a lot of room for movement there. And I know for a fact that there will be more in canon with him in the future. But it's only because of the diehard fans. If you were to take Marvel or DC, if you were to take an episode or a movie from the Avengers and have a 1-minute screen time with any of the side characters, even if they had prosthetic, it would fall on deaf ears. But with Star Wars, it just has a whole different value to it, especially with the collectors, especially with our generation, Generation X, where if it was a robot in episode 1 for 2 seconds, there's relevance to that. So it's just been amazing. I've been so appreciative as a Star Wars fan. And again, I mean, growing up, I loved bounty hunters. I loved all 6 of the OGs, as I call them. And I'm looking forward to the expanding of Gekko's story there as the years progress.
Yeah, but regardless, I mean, there you are on the set of the very first live-action Star Wars series. Yeah. And you're much more noticeable in the 3rd episode for sure. Yeah. You know, flanking Grief Karga as you guys confront the Mandalorian as he's trying to get off planet with Baby Yoda. Hey, listen, by the way, before this goes any further, and Jason will back me up on this, we do not accept the child as an appropriate identification for the precious, sweet Baby Yoda. As you can see, I have Baby Yoda here with me right now, and look, he's nodding in agreement.
Fans, 100%. I mean, people, they get so crazy over one thing or the other, and for me, I mean, you child, the Baby Yoda, I think it's all good. I mean, I agree with you. 100%. Flanking Grief Karga, I'd like to believe that he's a prominent figure in the Bounty Hunter Guild. So I'd like to believe they're going to go a little bit further with that story. But yeah, absolutely. We were featured. I was just mentioning that just because, again, it's kind of a weird dynamic because, as you understand it, any other project, it really would be almost meaningless. But it's obviously so special because it's the Star Wars universe. And again, those 10 days with Deborah Chow, director, and Dave Filoni, it was beyond a dream come true.
Incredible. And we know, as you said, Dominic, that in Star Wars especially, probably more so than in any other universe, there are no small parts. There really aren't.
We had a Han Solo, we had a Hammerhead. If we had, Princess Leia, we had a Walrus Man. I mean, it just went hand, and it amazes me to this day. But again, I mean, that's just my hope in terms of the icing on the cake. I don't roll in those circles in terms of making those decisions with Hasbro or Pop or Lego. But I'll tell you, the fans, they've come out and made so many custom-made figures. If you go to GekkoTheBountyHunter.com, you'll see some of that, or Lair of the Gekko on Facebook. Just the fan art, too, which has just been such a compliment to me during this entire quarantine time, just to thank the fans. There's a celebrity site called Cameo where, people can pay to have a video sent to them. I've been doing hundreds for free just as a thank you to the entire fan base, not to mention during this virus, to put a smile on some of the fan base's faces or the children. I can't do enough for them to say thank you because, again, I'm just so humbled by this entire experience.
Wow, great positivity. And plus, you come from the fan base, so you're one of us.
I was in Chicago last year. I was waiting for an hour. The illustrator I was meeting with privately to talk about possibly drawing Gekko to promote him as soon as the show came out. He was running an hour late, and just standing there online, feeling the energy, very similar to New York, of the Chicago people, not to mention the Star Wars fans. It's just so addictive. It's just every time I go, because people are asking me, some actors don't like Comic-Cons. I feed off the energy just because people are so passionate, enthusiastic. It's a day and age where everyone, in the Italian culture, we call them miserables. Everybody's got a negative attitude. Chicago, you guys know about this, even in high school, I never hung out with these people where you're too cool for school. I never dated those girls where you're too cool for anything. And the great thing I love with the Star Wars fan base is they're proud of who they are. I've been working with so many of the charitable organizations, Mandalorian Mercs, the 501st, where they take so much pride in their armor, in representing the brand. I love being around those people. It's like Kurt Cobain, he had that line, I wish I was like you, easily amused. It's not easily amused, it's just being in love with life, being passionate about the good things in life. But those miserables, I mean, they can go take a hike, and I'll stay with the Star Wars fans any day.
Say it loud, say it proud, right, Jason?
That's right. Dominic, I was blown away as I was scrolling through your IMDb. It seems like you've been on virtually every television show since the early 2000s. It's a huge roster. I love what you said earlier about it's kind of like the old school where you would hear actors, like Cagney and people like that said, look, an actor is a workman. An actor acts. It's a job, and you're never too good for any job, and you go out and you do it. But I am curious because you've been on the sets of so many different productions. Was there something different or unique that jumped out at you about being on the set of a Star Wars project?
I turned back to a child, and all the actors and celebrities I met meant nothing. This was all of a sudden my hands were literally numb. It wasn't so much Dave. I wasn't 100% familiar with him. I wasn't too much into Clone Wars, and obviously John. He made the greatest actor story of all time in the movie Swingers, and also he's had just an amazing career even with Elf, everything he's done for Marvel and Disney. But it really was being in that cantina, which was my first play set as a kid, and seeing George Lucas right there on day one for John's birthday, talking about the history of Mandalorians while I have 2 or 3 makeup guys getting me ready. My hands literally, went numb because it didn't matter. Thank you so much for the compliment. I've been a journeyman in terms of co-stars and guest stars, but this is a whole different level. And I think major A-list celebrities would admit, like if they met, some of the older, maybe Anthony Hopkins, or if they met, some of the legends from the greatest generation, it was kind of the same feeling. I think we all turn into a 5-year-old child when you're around George Lucas, and that's what it was.
Why do you think guys like Daniel Craig wanted to just be a stormtrooper in Force Awakens? It turns, it's kind of like the Santa Claus thing. We all turn into little kids when we see someone dressed up as Santa Claus, and Star Wars characters are very similar in that way.
There was a beautiful moment day one as well, along with Lucas. And again, it's so funny because I keep comparing it to the scene in Big with Tom Hanks and John Lovitz, to where he gets this $167 check, but he's so ridiculously excited, right? But he's next to 2 other actors, to where it's like, just another day on set, because they're not part of the fandom. So there was Legacy Effects also designed all of the blasters, and there's a table full of 20 blasters. Now, if you were to go to any Star Wars fan and say, hey, I want you to pick your lightsaber, or I want you to pick your blaster or your Sith weapon, they would freak the hell out. So there were these moments throughout the shooting that I literally had to go back. It was like almost like a level of professionalism. Even going around the corner for lunch one day when I saw a life-size land speeder, which was another one of my favorite toys as a kid, it was just beyond words. Not to mention this LED screen, which is going to change the face of cinema like you wouldn't believe. And it's in the best hands of Dave and John and Deborah Chow moving forward with Kenobi there. So I can't wait to see what they're going to do with it, because I think it's going to be some more special visuals to come.
And the latest edition of the Mandalorian Gallery show on Disney Plus spotlights the volume, they call it, that big wraparound screen.
Yeah.
And so you worked in that environment too?
So in the standoff in Navarro, we had green screen. The Razor Crest behind me, if you can see that standoff, me facing off with Mando, that was a green screen. However, on the first day of my screen test, I have perfect vision, and I was 20 feet away. It was, believe it or not, Werner Herzog's lair, his office. So you would think something like that, let's go out to the desert and go film it. Go back and watch the show. That is the LED screen, but I kept looking at it because my eyes kept deceiving me. It looked so ridiculously real. And I keep joking that we all have these dreams. If we get that Powerball ticket or that lottery ticket, if we win $300 million, I want to get a life-size, Millennium Falcon. But I'll tell you, to get that thing in your 3rd bedroom or your man cave, have maybe 13 channels of a day at Wrigley Field, a day at the beach, wherever you want to go. But I'm telling you, no matter what major IMAX film you've been to or whatever 4K you've got at home in terms of watching 8K, it doesn't matter. This thing was absolutely amazing, and the possibilities are endless in terms of where they're going to go. And I think the fact that they're going to be within the Star Wars universe season 2, I think we're going to see a lot more planets and worlds that are just going to be so mystical that we're all just going to be so blown away.
Now, if we can just talk Gekko canon here a little bit, his fate is undetermined at this point. There was the massive battle. The Mandalorian escapes at the hands of other Mandos. We see a lot of explosions, but we never definitively see what happened to Gekko. Do you have any theories?
Yes. Well, my makeup guy, Brian Sipe, I emailed him right afterwards, and I said, we didn't die. I've got some other good news. It's not 100%, but there's a new Marvel comic. It's called Star Wars Bounty Hunters. And the heads of that, Ethan Sachs and Paolo Vanelli, who's this amazing illustrator, have taken a serious interest in Gekko there. So I'm hoping and I'm confident you're going to be seeing a lot more of him. But I remember I emailed Brian right away. I said, we didn't die. No, we didn't. He said, I'm going to email them. So, the other thing is, look, Boba died in Return of the Jedi with the Sarlacc pit. And a lot of times Lucas would not have done that had he not known the popularity. And sometimes it might take, the first original bounty hunters were on screen for the same amount of screen time. It's about 1 minute. So a lot of times they don't know what ends up sticking and what doesn't. But the great thing is with the fan support and the passion I have, and I think I have a strong level of talent, especially working with prosthetics. I started with doubling and standing in for Frankenstein on Van Helsing back in 2002. I worked with Will Smith on Bright as one of the orcs. I was also with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. a couple of times. I'd like to believe, hopefully, there will be a very strong future for Gekko. And I'm hoping this national tour starting June 29th, going to August 1st all over the country will also assist as well.
Well, tell us a little bit about the tour and what it's all about.
Sure. It's to promote small business. We're going to do it in a safe and sanitary fashion. All sales, 15% of the merchandise is going to be going to the small business. And it's to promote small business. It's also to bring smiles back to all the faces of the country right now. Obviously, everybody's kind of been dragged to the mud in one way or another. We're going to do this in a safe way. We're starting in Las Vegas, going to Phoenix, Dallas, Corpus Christi, Houston, Tulsa, Omaha, Sioux City, Iowa, Fort Dodge, Iowa, Chicago, July 9th, Dearborn Heights, South Bend, Indiana, Chattanooga, Tennessee, and then down to Miami. And then we might swing back and hit Denver on the way back. But I just love the fans. I love the fact that they've sort of taken to this road trip. And, look, I've been holed up just like everyone else for 2-3 months, and I've always been a go-getter. And I'm proud to go out there and wear literally on my sleeve the love of Gekko.
Oh, my God.
Look at this.
Holy cow.
He's got any tattoos, but
he has a full Gekko on his shoulder. That's a permanent tattoo, right?
Absolutely. Permanent tattoo right there. Yeah, I didn't go to any of those little makeup places the last couple of days. But,
holy crap. I don't think that there is a single actor who appeared in Star Wars who actually has his character tattooed on his own flesh.
Yeah, not even Ray Park, I don't think.
I think it's the most humbling way, too. I mean, I never took it as, showing off, but just so grateful and so proud to not only represent the brand, but I think as any Gen X guy, it's like, who wouldn't want to be a bounty hunter? And not to mention a one-of-a-kind species and a one-of-a-kind bounty hunter within the universe.
Dominic, do you remember in 1980 when The Empire Strikes Back Marvel Comics adaptation came out and there was that front cover, I think it was issue number 43, that said, introducing the bounty hunters. And it was Boba Fett, Bosk, and Dengar right there on the front cover.
There's just something so intricate about the side characters, and that's a compliment to Lucas's original team. But even with my gauntlets, these forearm guards, they made them so thick. But just the attention to detail, and when you're 5 years old, just like music resonates in such an amazing way, why we love John Williams so much, it hits at your heartstrings, I think, in just more of an intense way when we're younger as opposed to when we're older. And I think we could say the same about the side characters, specifically bounty hunters. I mean, Boba Fett just had all the makings of just pure love when you're 5 years old. You've got a rocket pack, and you've got the mask and all this sort of mystery behind him. And, even with Gekko, you've got this face mask. Where does he come from? And where was he coming from? And where is he going? It's just amazing. But again, what I tell people is I'm actually not even a big sci-fi fan, but the depth, the detail that Lucasfilm has added to this amazing gem. And, one other note, too, for some of the fans who are, bitter about one story or the other, it's like our beloved Cubs or our Mets. We're going to be there no matter what because we love this universe. And I think that's what's so beautiful about the Star Wars universe, without question there.
Enough with this Cubs talk. You got the Frank Thomas jersey up on the wall. Let's give the White Sox a little love here. Come on.
Our beloved White Sox as well.
There we go. You know how the division is in this town. My God, it's like the Hatfield and the McCoys now.
Yeah.
You know which side of town I'm on, and that's the South Side. So
absolutely.
I'm sorry, Dominic. I usually don't like to tell our guests what to do, but when it comes to Cubs versus Sox, I have to take a stand, and that's my right as a Chicago area native.
Hey, Carlton Fisk all the way. Absolutely.
Oh, my God, my all-time favorite player. Okay, guess what? You've been redeemed.
There we go. I would have loved to have visited that old stadium. Obviously, I'm not a baseball historian, but I've been going all over the country visiting every baseball stadium. I have 4 left. But I really had a great time down in the new Comiskey there. We had a great time.
Oh, it's a beautiful park. And the old park was just a riot, man. Let me tell you. I found myself getting thrown out of there one night. And when you come to Chicago, maybe I'll share the story with you over a beer. That
was the old days of 10-cent beer night or whatever. It's some of the.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or mini bat day, which would never go down at Dodger Stadium these days.
So true.
They'd be like, they want to thin the herd. Yeah.
Hey, Dominic, since we're talking about earlier collecting and collectibles, can you give us a little tour maybe back there of some of the things that are hanging up behind you?
He's moving the camera and
Oh,
everything.
all
We're
right.
going to get
So
nice and
you've
close
got a-
here.
Absolutely. So
Whoa.
West Coke Designs was kind enough to design this piece. Can you see that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A full-
so he was kind enough to design an entire sculpture for me. Again, it just meant so much to me just because, again, I mean, I think any Star Wars fan would really like to immortalize, the entire experience. So I was really happy. And again, this is sort of a compliment to Brian Sipe and all the work that he did on me for that time, not to mention Joseph A. Poro.
My God, that's amazing. A life-size bust of your character. How do you feel staring into your own eyes from time to time?
I love it. I always joke because I'm such a nice guy. I'm like an Italian mama's boy. I said he wouldn't like me.
Well, I was Dominic, I wanted to ask you, we talked to a number of actors in the Star Wars universe, and one of them was Jeremy Bulloch, sort of the godfather of Star Wars bounty hunters. And, he realized when he put the costume on, he didn't really have to do a whole lot. He said he could just kind of let the costume inform the audience of who the character was, and that's a big part of what made Boba Fett so resonant. When you look in the face of Gekko, what are some things that, even though maybe it's not canonical, what's in your own head canon about maybe where this guy came from and why he wears the breather and all of that? Have you ever given that any thought?
Unapologetic. That's number one in terms of the demeanor. People ask me all the time what he would do with Baby Yoda. Unfortunately, I think he's a loyal member of the guild, so I think it'd be contrary to my empathy, and I think unapologetic. But yes, with this detail of this gauntlet, I don't know if you can see it. This forearm guard has so much depth to it that there's a lot of little gadgets on it. So for me, I think there's a little bit of a backstory with that in regards to, maybe some mini missiles, or it's a matter of the fact that he can put a whole entire defense shield around him to survive Navarro. Wink, wink.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of depth to that. This blaster, I picked the biggest one. I think it's got some heavy firepower. I'm 6'4", 260 pounds, so I would like to believe it's sort of like a Kane Hodder, like a Jason from Friday the 13th, where I have little agility, but at the same time, I carry a big stick. This has a tremendous amount of firepower. It's got a dagger down by the mag for hand-to-hand combat. So I think you've got a tremendous amount of firepower for Gekko. And
so they let you pick. They let you pick your own blaster then.
That is correct. And like I said, I was just like a kid in a candy store in regards to that. That moment for me, I will never forget. And they just were kind of nonchalant with it. And again, for any Star Wars fan, I think it's just beyond words. There's a really cool gentleman in Maryland, and just whether we get the Hasbro figure or not, he made a custom vintage figure of me, just reminding me of my childhood of Gekko.
That's great.
And that just meant the world to me.
Dominic, I think in some cases the fans are doing better work than the actual manufacturers. Some of the stuff that's coming out of the basements of some fans and 3D printers and all of that is great stuff.
Yeah, it's funny you mention that because, a lot of people were disappointed in just the limited amount of characters they released with the figures,
Right.
And I think it's a Disney thing, when I was kind of upset because people were saying with Lucasfilm, they said 20 years ago, you'd have a figure before you even know it, and now it's a little bit different there. I have the autographs of, not to be egotistical, but just respectful for my kids, just myself, and then also Carl. And we have a picture of our standoff. And then he made this custom of Carl there, which I thought was pretty awesome. I've got detonators 3D printed. I've got tracking fobs 3D printed, as well as some of the currency, the Imperial currency there as well.
Right.
I've got a tracking fob, Beskar. I've got my, I couldn't keep anything, but I got my bandolier there as well, which is signature to Gekko, where he keeps, I think, his heavy firepower within those shotgun shells there, And then also just my challenge coins, where the fans have just been so incredibly supportive there of the challenge coins. A gentleman in Indiana made this very detailed mini figure, this mini Lego figure there. So it's been really special. And this right here means so much to me. The 501st marked me as an honorary member. I've just been heavily involved in just all their charitable causes, along with the Mandalorian mercs there. So it's been amazing. And then again, I can't say enough about the artwork People have just been making artwork left and right, and it just has been absolutely amazing in terms of what they've been putting forth. And I know that Dave and I know that George, I'm sure it takes a lot of passion in terms of just as here's the Lego galaxy for my kids here.
That's excellent.
In the sky, and then I'm not a huge collector of the figures, but I loved Rogue One, and I just for nostalgia, I have a few there up on the wall there and such.
Wow. That is super impressive, the way you have all of the Gekko memorabilia framed on the wall like that. It's one of the most impressive memorabilia displays I've ever seen. And what's great about it is a lot of those pieces are one of a kind or unique to your collection.
Like I said, I just can't tell you how grateful I am. And the thing is, we live in a world where everybody wants more and more and more, but it gets to a point to where, I don't come from much, and it's just a matter of just being appreciative. You don't hear that much anymore. There's a lot of entitlement in society of I need this or I need that. And for me, just sometimes the great things that we get in life, you need to be appreciative. And that's the point I'm at right now. I'll be 45 in a few months, of just being appreciative and being grateful. And again, for any Star Wars fan, out of the respect to the millions of people who may never get to be in the series, it's also to them to pay it forward to them in terms of just being thankful because they may not have that opportunity. So I think as a representative or to be, a small ambassador of the series, I think I have no other choice, but it just comes natural because I love the franchise so much there.
Well, you're doing a great job, sir. Let me say that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Hey, tell us a little bit about being on the set with Dave Filoni in his first live-action directorial project. Did you have any interaction with Filoni?
We were given simple direction in the cantina that we were kind of trading and bartering. Obviously, you was a group of bounty hunters, so we were given slight direction. The one thing that impressed me so much, I've been on many sets, was just the demeanor of John and Dave and Deborah. Extremely professional. You're talking about a $100 million budget. You coming from a Hollywood history to where James Cameron panicking with a $200 million budget on Titanic, screaming and yelling and firing people left and right. They were so calm, cool, and collected. And I was with Dave that first week, and I can't tell you just how chill everybody was. Kathleen Kennedy was there, George Lucas, and can you imagine having that budget on your shoulders and where, you've got all the Disney suits watching you? They were just so calm and cool. And not only that, you can just feel that the story flowed effortlessly. And now watching all 8 episodes, you understand why they had that confidence. So I think Disney put their trust in them. Bob Iger put their trust in them. And for the right reasons, just because from the second team like myself all the way up to the top, the big guys, it was just smooth as silk. And if you were on a military ship, a Navy ship, and you had them as captains and commanders, you would definitely want to go to bat for them because they were just so respectful to everyone.
Did you know George Lucas was going to show up that day?
I did not. I met him in 2002 briefly at a charity event called Target, A Time for Heroes, but I did not, and it was just almost too much to take because one thing I think a lot of Star Wars fans can relate to is being a side character, it's not about you. So the one thing I was holding my breath with in the cantina was, are you going to get featured? Are you going to have enough screen time to where, you are going to be immortalized to the level that you want to be? I have an illustrator right now. They're going to release it in a few days that actually is doing a drawing. I'm giving her just a strong depiction of my imagination in terms of what went down on Navarro. There was this one shot that didn't end up making it, but I wanted that to be included in, or at least in the lore. I was going sort of head to head with Mando while he's lying down on the flatbed, and it was me and there were like 2 other bounty hunters behind me before he throws his flamethrower at us. So I just wanted her to create that. But overall, I was happy with the shots that came in. And like I said, I'm confident and I'm hopeful that there'll be more of the character as time progresses.
Oh, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Definitely. Maybe Gekko, a Star Wars story.
Well.
Come on, let's shoot for the stars.
I don't think we're going to have a romance anytime soon. And,
aim high.
But I tell you, my dream storyline would be to be in the Kenobi series. I believe Vader, in a perfect world, would commission a splinter cell of bounty hunters to go after Luke, and I would love nothing more to get an ass whipping from Kenobi to go after that precious child who we all adore so much. I think that would be a really cool side story for Gekko since Kenobi takes place before Mandalorian.
Baby Yoda.
Baby Yoda.
You said child. I have to correct you.
There you go. Yes, sorry. I these fans because they hate hearing that, and I'm just like, all right, child, whatever you want. I don't want to argue. I don't want to argue with this.
I was at a convention with Jason Swank 2 months ago, and he started yelling and screaming to everyone. He wanted to see the child, and they called security on him.
Yeah, you have to be careful with that.
I just keep it completely PC because man, some of these fans get really, really passionate of one way or the other, and for me, it just goes back to just the joy of being, enjoying Star Wars. But man, I'll tell you, I got into it years ago with one of them, and I was like, you know what, I'm never doing it again.
Oh boy, don't we have? We still have open wounds actually from some of those interactions ourselves.
Scars.
So we know what you're talking about, sir. But it's just that proud tradition of the Star Wars nicknames that probably goes back to the old Kenner days. You refer to the characters as Walrus Man and Hammerhead.
Ponda Bob, exactly.
Yeah, Ponda Baba. It's much more fun to call him Walrus Man. Let's face it.
That's it.
And I don't know if you've ever heard any interviews with Mark Hamill where he would talk about some of his reactions to going onto the set and all the nicknames that he and the cast and crew would apply to some of these characters.
Oh boy, with Walrus Man's lips, I can only imagine.
So, Dominic, did you get a glimpse of Baby Yoda on set?
It's a great story. So I thought it was great what John and Dave did. They actually sacrificed all Christmas merchandise sales for this reason. They wanted to keep it hidden. But the great thing about that was the entire time I had the standoff, I thought I saw a baby, and it was swaddled, but I didn't see exactly what it was. So they kept it hidden from the set. What I thought, though, was that it was going to be a backstory for either Rey, Finn, or Poe, and I was so excited because I said, oh, God, this is great because it's going to add another layer to the sequel trilogy, which I really would have appreciated. So I was really, really excited about the fact that this could be the origin of where Rey came from, or Poe, or maybe Finn. Maybe there's some magic to, their origin, that they're special in one way or another. So that's what I thought the whole entire time, but I was happy that they did that because if it leaked, with all the venom from Solo, with all the venom from Episode 8, it would have just been a disaster if you heard that they were like, oh, Disney's going to turn it into a freaking Muppet Babies cartoon with Baby Yoda, and This is going to be a piece of garbage because it's for television and it's about a Baby Yoda. It would have been disgusting, and it's so great that they kept it secret because obviously now we see the magic that they created and also the storyline to where nobody heard about it more or less. And it was great that they kept it all secret there.
Right. We were actually able to give the storytellers the benefit of actually providing us with the execution of the story before we started judging it in our own minds. And it's just like Yoda said to Luke Skywalker before he walked into the tree cave. Luke said, "What's in there?" And Yoda said, "Only what you take with you."
Yeah.
And I was so happy that we were allowed the fresh experience of watching the character debut without having any kind of spoilers ahead of time. And that's a rarity in the year 2020, 2019, whenever the episode came out. It's a rarity in current era Hollywood to have that.
And a funny story with that, imagine being such a diehard fan and having to keep this all secret for an entire year, which I had to. But that was the side too, because out of respect to all the fans, out of respect to Disney and John and Dave and this opportunity, I didn't say a word. You can imagine sort of chomping at the bit, though, with knowing what you knew, but you couldn't let any secrets out until last October there.
Well, Dominic, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. And knowing what a huge Star Wars fan you are, I think you're going to appreciate this because we have received questions from Master Yoda himself. These are questions for Star Wars fans that they may sound simple at first, but they might actually elicit the most complicated response from you. Okay. So, Jason, do you have the Yoda questionnaire at your disposal?
Is there, Matt? Okay. I do right here, right from Yoda himself.
I'm only on season 4 of the Clone, so don't get me on.
Oh, no. That's the beauty of the Yoda questionnaire is that it doesn't discriminate no matter what kind of fan you are. If you're a Star Wars fan.
Sure.
All right. Okay. All right. We're going to start off. Yoda starts off sort of easy, right? You're levitating pebbles before we get you the big rocks. All right.
So Milky Way, and your R2 in there. Yeah.
All right. So here we go. First question from Yoda: what or who is your favorite Star Wars character?
Listen, it's all the age of strong women now, but I go back to strong men as well. And we need to be alpha males, and that goes back to Han Solo himself, who the real Han Solo, Harrison Ford, who had the balls beyond belief. Yes. It's Han Solo.
Woof, 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 woof.
I'm sorry, hold on. I'm tearing up a little bit.
Hey, strong women, strong men, man. I mean, welcome to equality.
Yes.
I'm sorry to Gillette. I'm sorry to all the PC, but Han Solo freaking took care of business back in the day. He should still take care of business, and the real women appreciate men who take care of business. Han Solo.
Wow. All right. You already passed the test. We'll give you some more questions. Who or what is your least favorite Star Wars character? Who is it that you just, every time they come on the screen, you just grit your teeth and
I don't know. I mean, it was some kind of social motivation with that droid in Solo, which I thought was the dumbest freaking thing they could have ever done.
Oh!
I mean, look, at the end of the day, this is about the universe, and we can argue about storylines and this and that, but that just seemed like complete feeding and virtue signaling of any kind that we really did not need to see.
You're talking about...
And I felt like taking a piece of detonator and throwing it right in her can.
So L3
right,
is who we're talking about here.
Wow, man, this is rapid fire stuff. All right, Dominic. I'm going to throw you a little curveball here because I think you can take it. What is your favorite Star Wars line? Favorite Star Wars line of dialogue?
I'm Italian, so I go back to romanticism, and there's nothing more powerful than the connection and the chemistry between Leia and Han, and I love the phrase of "I love you, I know."
Oh, there it is. And it's appropriate because we're spending a lot of time this week on Rebel Force Radio commemorating 40 years of The Empire Strikes Back, so it's great that we have a bounty hunter on and that you threw down with the "I love you, I know," which wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for the great Irvin Kershner, as we know. Well, as well as Harrison Ford, but it was director Irvin Kershner that gave him that ability, that space on the set to improvise that way. As an actor, how do you feel about that? Have you ever had a director say, "Hey, just make something up," if you don't like the words?
When you have that level of star power, you've earned that level of respect. A lot of times with co-stars and guest stars, and I've been fortunate to be on a lot of shows, you respect the director. What happens is if you have too many hands in the pot, a production can really go awry. So the one thing is also to be a good listener and to really leave the ego at the door. Sometimes you're dealing with some of the other divas on set. So more often than not, unless it's something ridiculously awkward, I try to respect the director unless it's something that I'm really passionate about in some of my few starring roles there.
All right. Next question. Got a couple more here for you. What is your least favorite Star Wars line? Is there a line of dialogue that just makes you kind of cringe when you hear it?
Yeah, I didn't really care for the Bob Costas announcer during the pod race. I thought that was the first. I understand with the Ewoks, but I just thought that was the first nod to being a little too corny. And again, you could say, yeah, we had the Ewoks and such. For me, the Ewoks worked, but just the play-by-play took us a little bit too much into the real world.
That's right.
So that little moment, it's not a line in particular, but that whole entire bit, I would have loved to have seen the pod race without any announcers.
Oh, that's gotta hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could have just the whole thing could have been subtitled and made it feel more alien, Okay, finally, last question, and I think you're in a unique position to answer this one. And let's say, Dominic, that there was another Star Wars feature film to be made and you were cast in it, and it was directed by none other than George Lucas, the maker himself. What would you like to hear him say to you on set as he yells, "Cut," on your final scene?
The one thing with my height and my presence is also the level of intensity. I'm a nice guy in real life, but to be able to have that intensity resonate like the idols that I've looked up to as a child, most importantly, Harrison Ford. So to be able to be compared to them one day in terms of that alpha strength, I think would be the greatest compliment.
All right. Well,
so he would say something like, "Yeah, that's how Harry would have done it."
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah. Okay, perfect. And he's like, let's go out and get some dinner.
Yeah.
I'm buying. That's what I would like to hear George say. Dinner's on me.
Oh, man.
Dominic, great answers, and thank you so much for being generous with your time. Best of luck on your tour. I know you've got a great website over there at Gekko the Bounty Hunter. That's with 2 Ks. GekkoTheBountyHunter.com. Is that where folks can get the tour dates and the list of locations that you're going to be?
Absolutely. We start off in Las Vegas June 29th, and we end up in Miami around late July, early August, and you have all the dates in between there throughout the Midwest. I hope to see as many people come out. We're going to do this in a safe and sanitary fashion. We're going to adhere to all the guidelines from every state governor, but more or less, even if we have it at an awning to where it's just kind of a pass-through and, you know, a photo from maybe a 6-foot distance. I just really wanted to devote this year to the Bounty Hunter and also to meet all the fans who I care for so much because I've been a lifelong fan myself.
Well, I certainly look forward to making it out to your Chicago appearance and watching you pull up in the Gekko Mobile, right?
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
have the Gekko Mobile.
Well, and the other thing that's great about, when you think about it, Dominic, what's great about the character is he's already got the built-in breathing mask. So you're already...
I'm one step ahead of you. I already got Gekko-like masks for sale now. So.
Oh, great. All right.
Oh. Like Spaceballs, the coloring book. It's gonna be Gekko the T-shirt, Gekko the face mask. You know?
That's awesome.
Wow.
Well, and there's a great map on your Facebook page over at Lair of the Gekko. You can see all the different stops, and my, you're going to be, looks like, what is this, 124 hours, 46 minutes?
But that's heavy traffic.
After this whole quarantine, it's going to be just a warm welcome to just kind of be in my own thoughts, have a nice, comfortable ride, and I just love Americana. I love driving cross country, so there's a peaceful aspect to it as well. So it's going to be a labor of love, not to mention meeting so many great people.
No, this is wonderful. This is wonderful. So we'll definitely want to catch up with you in Chicago and hear how it's been going as you know, because that's pretty much the midway point, right? Absolutely. We'll see how you're holding out and make sure, you know, we'll get reviews of all the best restrooms in gas stations throughout the country. I'm sure you're going to be keeping track of that. And maybe Gekko's favorite restroom.
I'll call some of those numbers in the restroom. I'll see what's going down.
Yeah, right.
Excuse me, sir. Are you a Star Wars fan?
Okay, hey, you may not know who I am, but I'm just lonely tonight, you know. You might have heard
Dominic, you're great, man. I'm so happy to have made this connection with you. And like I said, I hope I meet you in person.
Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you guys, and love to all your listeners. Again, if any kid needs a happy birthday or a shout out, feel free to reach out on social media. Always happy to be there for the fans. I appreciate you all for your support with this Bounty Hunter.
That's wonderful.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
Thank you guys. Great night.
May the force be with you.
Absolutely. Thank you too.
Wait, don't let him go yet.
What? Wait a minute. We
have to say to you, this is the way.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. Absolutely.
All right, now get rid of him.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, Dominic.
Thanks, Dominic.
Take care.